Studio A, and I have my regular guest is Steve Colbern tonight, and he's a regular on the show, as you all know. Before we get to that, I wanted to read something off to you guys from my book, 1 Million Miles to Midnight, real quick. It's brief, and one of the chapters, which I think is in resonance with what's really happening here in this world, and I encourage you to take a look at this book and read it. So I'm just going to read it out real quick. It won't take too long. The synthetic mist surrounds my portal view in early morning in what would have been March of 2018. The nightmares from the fractal design still sit beside my headrest like a specter haunt from a motionless world. Driven by a spell of the future, I lie motionless and sit beside the moment in anticipation of a monologue of which I know so well. It has been years, one could say centuries, since the initial awakening and activation from the Mother-Father program, hidden in between the spaces of evolution and false sciences. For a brief moment, my eyes well up with a storm from the past, yet the emotional response is a program of which cues me to reset my virtual field. After all, everything is a program. Thoughts, emotions, and what some in early centuries would have called feelings. Unable to rest any longer, I arise and look at the fractal, which early pioneers would call a clock. Hands in reverse, I am aware time in the illusion is just that. It is a version of reality which has no meaning, purpose, or destination. It is the lost realm of a futureless design. The magnetic field properties of this ship are no longer functional. We can thank this on the event horizon and quantum jumping. So here I sit in my metal shroud of a motionless stare. Another moment passes in a world of which is unseen yet very effective in the void of experience. For too many lifetimes I have been uploaded in the design of so many. The mother of all machines, so my maker has communicated, and now what is left is a shell of code. What many have called an Earth from the past has become a station in space called Avatar 1. It has become a virtual world based on machine languages and synthetic consciousness. The bigger network is interconnected into and onto galaxies anchoring beyond the central core of the universe. There are no religions or governments on this station, just programs. Yet this is how it is for all races and universal sectors. It took eons for what they used to call the race of man to catch up to the stars. And they did in the most atrocious ways. Wars of devolution started the fragmentation which allowed more and more off-world designs to mutate into the world they used to call Earth. Mankind mutated the grid to such an extent the fields collapsed, and the chatter of which they called communication came to an abrupt halt. The null zone was created, which warped the illusion of time in their experience. Their minds were erased, and the upload started. Enough of that as my mind races into infinity. It is time to start the day on the ship called Avatar 1 and do what they programmed the unit to do. My specialty is multiversal translation and terraforming. I communicate to whatever species is in my sector and create fractals of which can be shared to other species. These fractals used to be called libraries on Earth. Now they are fractal images in holographic design, which can be inserted into the matrix of any unit. Organic is extinct these days. There is no such thing as a natural ocean, tree, food, or other. Even the race of man crashed into a virtual storm of experimentation. Long forgotten in his mark on what was called Earth, now the planet is synced up with the galactic center. Hence, Avatar 1 sets sail. That's chapter 1 from my book, 1 Million Miles to Midnight Between the Mirror and the Lens. And this is a book that's literally a spin-off of Artificial Intelligence Interface that I actually was inducted into in 2004. So this is really just the technology itself morphed and the real design work behind the technology. So I encourage you all to purchase it. It's only like $7. Shameless plug, but not really. I think this is one of my most important books on the timeline right now. So anyways, that's it. I just want to read that out real quick. And with that being said, we have my wonderful science officer, I love to call him that, and he's a regular on the show, as you all know. And let me get you his bio here. Y'all are familiar with Steve. Steve Colbern is a chemist and chief materials scientist with 20 years of industrial experience. He is currently working in the area of carbon nanotubes. Steve Colbern has analyzed several alleged alien implants that the late Dr. Roger Lear had removed from his patients and has uncovered startling findings. Steve's research discovered that these objects contain nanotubes and other nanostructures, indicating that they are sophisticated nanodevices made by a level of nanotechnology far beyond that of a current mainstream or earthly science. Steve is constantly being asked to research and evaluate specimens that people bring to him. He takes his scientific research very seriously and is dedicated to proving the truth about nanotechnology and all it contains. His website is alienevidenceinc.webs.com. Please welcome Steve Colbern to the show this evening. Good evening, Steve.
Good evening. Nice to be here again, as always.
It's wonderful to have you on board. You know that. I always enjoy our discussions, and you are officially my science officer. You know, let's beam out and get the hell out of here. Cool. But it's wonderful to have you on board tonight. And I thought that was a good chapter to read insofar as just the technological things that happen behind the scenes. You know, everybody's getting wrapped up in the polarization of anger, rage, you know, emotional enemy patterning and all this other crap, but they don't seem to understand the real technological warfare program that's been running rampant here and our future, which is really about artificial intelligence off planet. But that's another scenario. So tell everybody what you've been up to or where you want to start tonight.
Well, first of all, I think government is sowing all this hate and trying to turn people against each other, and they're doing a pretty good job. I think people hate each other right now more than any other time in history before the last Civil War, perhaps, or War of the Rebellion, as the government called it, because it was a rebellion.
Yeah,
13
very
states
true.
seceded. But anyway, yeah, I've been up to quite a bit. I've been getting a lot of attention lately. I went on Coast to Coast on the 31st, and nobody said what the ratings were, but I think it was a pretty successful broadcast. And,
excellent. Congratulations.
And, I've been invited on a couple other radio shows and to a couple of conferences, including the UFO Con on the 23rd of next month, and I'll be doing the scanning booth. So that should be a lot of fun. And
very nice.
Anybody who wants who's going to the conference and wants a scan, please contact me. Number's 805-625-2549. You should be able to pay in advance if you like through the website. The donate button is still working, although the website needs some work. I'm going to be doing that in the next month or two.
Very good.
And I was invited as a guest speaker to the Dulce Base conference. I think that's in April or May. And of course, Solaris and I are speaking at the UFO Watchtower event in July. So things are going good. And somebody actually offered. I was at the Paracas Elongated Skull DNA results conference in LA near the airport a couple of weeks ago, and somebody actually invited me there to interview me and actually offered to pay for another implant removal. So I'm working on that now, putting together a team implant removal and finding a doctor that can do it. And so it's going good so far in 2018. I really can't complain.
Yeah, 2018 is going to be a very good year for you, and I think the personal years are going to be good for everybody. It's just the turbulent things that happen in between the spaces with global warfare.
It's about time that the universe gave us all a break. I know a lot of people, especially a lot of experiencers I know, have been having a very tough time. And,
well, I mean, I don't think I'll ever get a break until I'm off planet, to be honest with you. I'm never going to get out of here until I'll never be at home until
a break is a relative thing. This is a prison planet or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's definitely a frequency design. It's getting worse by the day when it comes down to the technological warfares and the technological warfare period. And then, we're running into some problems with that. But hey, I was going to ask you too, if you're looking for anybody, I think we discussed a little bit about, if you need somebody like me on your team or assisting you, or you need someone who can, do some experimentation with, let me know. You know where I'm at. We'll talk about it afterwards.
Well, you
have a lot of signal anomalies, and everybody's pretty much just afraid. And
the way it's looking, funding may become available to buy some signal analysis equipment, and if that comes about, then I definitely want you as a subject. I want to do some more research on these objects before they leave the body.
Yeah, I do too, and also because things have morphed even since 2004, but I still am loaded, and I want to see where everything's at. Also, just call me Agent X or something weird, and that'll be fine.
All right, sure.
The ET. I'm happy.
Anybody that does not want their name used in this research, that's perfectly fine.
Oh, that doesn't matter. Yeah, everybody knows me anyway. So, but I agree, and I encourage anybody who's out there who thinks they might have some kind of signals or any kind of implant to really seek Steve out and have him do an analysis for you, because this is not a game we're playing. We're actually going into a very deep level of science and covert science at that. What do you think? Yeah,
and I think the alien abduction phenomenon has really increased in frequency, and people with implants are more common than ever. At least it certainly seems that way through my research the past few years. I've been into this in earnest for about 10 years now.
Right. And have you noticed now, there was a lot of talk on, I think it was, I heard the earlier show, they were talking a little bit about 5G. I know Mr. Rose talked about it also. Do you think that has anything to do with enhancing these signals or implants in each host or target, or do you think they'll negate the signal? Do you have any idea?
I'm not sure what 5G is. Is that something to do with cell phones or?
That's the new, yeah, I think it's the new higher frequency that they're going to be using for the, I don't want to say it's Wi-Fi, but it's more for the cell phones, if I'm not mistaken.
I'd have to research that.
It's supposed to be a lot stronger. The signal's supposed to be a lot stronger. I would say, intuitively speaking, it would probably run some interference. One thing I have to say, and you probably have noticed this, even though I'm so glad your world is going well. I really am. But I have to ask you, the madness that's around us, it's like we walk outside and it's a zombie world. And yet there are some of us here who are, actually pretty grounded and pretty normal in consciousness. But the rest of the world seems like it's just falling apart and fragmenting before us. Do you see that where you are, or is it just me?
The world fragmenting and falling apart?
Just people. People in general, a lot of people out there. The mass collective.
People have had a really tough time. Prices are increasing and the economy is terrible. And if you lose your job, you might go a year or more without out of work. And these economic conditions are certainly the worst I've ever seen. I think they're the worst since the last Great Depression. In fact, I'm calling this, I call them as I see them. I'm calling this Great Depression number 2. Mm-hmm. The government says it's only a recession, but that's certainly not the case from where I sit. But
right.
I think people are stressed out and they're turning on each other. Actually, they have to take it out on somebody, or most people do. And I think that the society is unsustainable, as we've discussed before. I'm surprised it's lasted this long.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
We're headed for some sort of a disaster, or maybe many disasters. Economic, health and disease-wise, and ecological, nutritional, and maybe even genetic or biological in some way involving the human race. We're doing a lot of things wrong. We're doing a lot of things completely backwards. And it's gone on long enough now where it's really hurt us. And,
I agree. Yeah, it's social engineering too. The whole thing is a looping program. This is what happens when you program the mass collective with ignorance, incompetence, false belief systems, and a control mechanism. It's designed to do one thing: dumb down the collective. And it simply has. It's done that, with the exception of a very few of us who can break orbit with that state of consciousness, right?
Yeah, it's working. It seems like there's a metric out there that's overt and covert. The overt part of it is the media, and the covert part of it is some sort of signaling, like perhaps done by HAARP or other scalar arrays to affect the human brain.
Right.
And it's been very effective in dumbing people down. I see a big difference from people between now and 20, 30 years ago.
Right.
And
I agree.
The government's been completely dumbed down. They used to have some pretty smart people running things. Now it's a bunch of political hacks that usually aren't qualified for the position.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big
and they've
problem.
been loitering for a long time. Well, I see this whole world as zeroing out myself. I think it's flatlining, personally. And I said it before, this world is imploding. This reality, this false reality, it's just going nowhere. It's imploding. People can't ride the wave, so it's going to have to implode. But those of us who can ride multidimensional waves are already there. The thing is, we're already out there. We're already out there in consciousness. And what I can't stand is anybody getting in my way. When I'm ready to do something, I don't want people bothering me. I don't want people in my space or trying to control, manipulate my brainwave activity or anything else. And what I think needs to happen, quite honestly, and I'll say it a billion times over until people get it, please read my work, especially my book, 1 Million Miles to Midnight, people. But I can tell you point blank, it's really about getting off this world. We need to get out of here, and we need to leave. We need to take a small collective who are very intelligent beings, who have it together, who are not part of this crazy daisy psychosis that we're seeing every day. We need to just go. We just need to get the hell out of here and go. And I swear to you, I'm going to find a way to do that. So you guys, you've heard me say this, and I'm not kidding you. I am going to find a way, just like Elon Musk has his stuff going on. I'm going to find a way to do that, because I'm not tolerating this anymore.
The easiest way would be to somehow convince the aliens to give you a ship.
Well, whatever. I'm going to figure it out. Believe me, I will figure it out.
It may be the other way around. Maybe the other objectionable people leaving. There's going to be a big population crash. The aliens have said that, and the government wants it too. And they just differ in the group that they want to remain behind. And the aliens want to repopulate the Earth with people like us and their hybrids. And there's going to be some sort of disaster, like combination of disasters, like I said, that's going to drastically reduce the population. I can see the writing on the wall. And it's not going to be too much longer before that starts to happen. And it may be that we don't need to go anywhere, that the Earth will be more set up for people like us and just resonate at a higher level of consciousness to be new agey about it after all these other less evolved people are gone.
Right. Well, I can understand what you're talking about, because with frequency, as I've touched on, with modulation and waves of frequency, we can actually alter reality. In other words, it's like a holodeck. We're here 1 minute, and the next minute we alter our frequencies, and we're in a new Earth star or on a new Earth star. So it's that same concept, and the frequencies that will be riding that and directing that.
As a scientist, that was hard to believe before when just New Age people said it, but now with these results that you can actually alter the DNA of organisms by radio signals, scalar radio signals, and thoughts are scalar radio signal, that's becoming more and more easy to believe.
Yeah. No, they've been doing that for a while. Yeah, and the interesting part of that is, because I've taught DNA activation prior to my being inducted, it was always about frequencies from divine galactic celestial energies activating the DNA and basically changing our molecular structure and our state of consciousness through frequency. So what they've done is hijacked it, weaponized it, created their version of radio signals to alter the DNA with scalar technology. It's just unbelievable. So then you can go in one direction or the other with that, insofar as they can basically switch people on and help them ascend, or they can dumb them down and make them incompetent, do the erasures on them, give them lobotomies by remote signals, and they're done. And honestly, that's what I'm seeing right now. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing too. I believe that, and I think that people like us are immune. I know that I'm completely immune to any kind of brainwashing. It may annoy me, but it does not change the way I think. And I think you're the same way.
Right. Yeah.
I think a lot of what I call class 2 experiencers are that way. We're maybe programmed to be that way, or genetically made to be that way.
We're not easily influenced. Yeah. There's no doubt about that one.
We're not supposed to be. We're supposed to be influencing them, not the other way around. And it has worked to a certain extent. Without people like us around, I think things would have gone to hell in a handbasket a long time ago.
I do too. Yeah, and I've talked about that.
People that are trying to do this are encountering resistance. It's not like everything always goes their way.
That's very true. One thing I do know is that when we start getting a lot of momentum, they tend to go after us. The people in these certain divisions and cabals tend to try to control, manipulate, or corral or handle the person who has a lot of influence over the mass collective. And that's their protocol, but still it's not acceptable. And that's why I always say, you go and you rise above your level of what you are as a citizen, because we're not citizens, we're off-worlders here incarnate on a timeline, and we need to be treated as such. And until people start getting that message and understanding their true multidimensional star bodies, they're never going to really understand it. The one thing I like about what you're doing is that you're showing the world what's happening here, whether it's an alien abduction or whether it's something connected to government. It's real. This is a real technology, real science, and you can see it and you can measure it.
It's hard to believe for a lot of people that have been brought up like we all were and everything to believe that we're the only ones in the universe and all that. But when you think about it, it's a ridiculous belief from the get-go. And
right.
And I'm here to tell you that I lived all this, and Solaris lived a different part of it, and it's as real as it gets. I mean, they are putting implants in people. They're coming down. They're flying thousands of sorties a day to abduct people for various reasons, and they're partly to prepare the world for what's coming. And
right. Yeah, and what's interesting. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
To change things. So go ahead. Yeah.
Right. No, I was going to say also is what's interesting is that they'll sit there and they'll paint it up in Hollywood. They'll put a movie out and everybody will eat it up like ice cream. But when it comes down to people showing up with real data, they don't want to look at it. I'm not saying everybody, but there are a lot of people in the mainstream, and a lot of the mainstream media doesn't want to look at this information, whether it's through national security threats, which I know that's the case, because a lot of this stuff is weaponized in military and covert black sciences to a point where they don't want it out there. Well, too late. When you start pulling people into these covert warfare programs, don't expect us to keep our mouths shut. We don't work for you. So that's the bottom line.
They never do. They never do completely eliminate leaks on this kind of stuff. They just try to spin it such that they discredit the person and discredit the information, and ridicule it, and make people afraid of ridicule. And there's a lot of reasons that people don't want to look at this kind of data. Hard data scares people, and just anecdotal reports are easy to dismiss, but hard data scares people. It scares the people that know deep down that this is all true but don't want to believe it. It threatens their worldview.
Right.
And the people in the mainstream are scared of it because that would force them to change their worldview, and they're scared of being put on a list by the government or having their funding cut off, and it scares the powers that be because they don't want to relinquish this kind of control and give up the alien technology or have to hand it out to other people. And doing disclosure would mean not having their breakaway civilization anymore, or whatever you want to call it, not having complete control over all the advanced technology, and having to empower the average citizen. And that's not what they want. They don't want to empower the average citizen past 1960 or 1970 levels. That's when this all really began in earnest. It seems to me around 1970, everything just stopped. I mean, and we still do everything the same way we did back in the late 50s, except for computers. The only things that they've allowed to change are computer technology and communications technology. Before that, we were advancing at a very rapid pace, just a breakneck pace, and then all of a sudden it just stopped. And
you're right.
I think that's extremely suspicious right there.
Well, what do you think caused that, Steve? Let me ask you. What do you think was the?
Well, I know at least in part what caused it. Now I know that the government started cherry picking patents. They know whenever a technological patent comes out, there's like 7 different government agencies that have to review it. And if any of them wants it or says that it has national security implications, they can put a hold on it for 5 years. Or they can keep it from ever seeing the light of day and just take it and use it for themselves. And that just totally puts the kibosh to any kind of civilian progress. And that's pretty much what it's done. That happened. I know that because that happened to one of my patents when I was working at YTC America, doing carbon nanotube technology.
What year was that?
When I first found out about this, that was around 2006.
Oh, okay, I was trying to figure out when they decided to. That's probably what put you on the radar too. Whenever you have a patent, that really highlights an awful lot with these guys in the governments.
Yeah, and then in 2015, they hurt me or tried to kill me or something. I'm not sure exactly what that was all about. They broke my ankle and did a lot of damage to my leg, and I had a life-threatening blood clot. So I'm not sure if that was a warning or a botched procedure or what it was. But,
could have been both. But well, that's their style, definitely. Bully, passive harassment, push, and then when people counter, they call them a threat to national security and say, well, they're a security threat. We're only a threat if you attack us 24 hours a day and try to kill us. It's as simple as that. If you commit a war crime against me, I'm going to counter you, and I'm not going to be called a level threat just because I'm countering you. It's because you're attacking me and trying to murder me. It's as simple as that. I went through that. Through that, Steve. So
they remind me of the Romans. The Romans acted like they had just a total right to take over everything, and anybody that resisted them was evil, rather than they were evil for trying to take over in the first place. They have a strange warped way of looking at things.
And the thing is, with these implants, some of them, whether they're from us or off-world, and I know some had deep space signal, and we've talked about that. It tells me one thing, whether it's black sciences or whatever, this is a technology they want to make sure they have control over. They don't want to delegate this to anybody else. And if the target has this technology within them, they're either going to induct them into a military, my lab or something, and keep them, very, very close to these black science departments for control mechanisms. And at least that's the way I've observed it over the years. What about you?
Well, yeah, I have reason to believe that I've been that one time where they broke my ankle. I was definitely government. I got regressed over it and remembered seeing human beings in the shadows, and the equipment they were using definitely didn't look like it was alien. It looked like it was like the basement of some government building or something as well. And
Go ahead. Or do you want me to chime in? But how long was that regression you had with that?
Oh, how long ago, or how long?
How long did it last? How long did the regression itself last when you did that?
About an hour.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm not surprised at all. A lot of things that we don't accept at the conscious level go down to the subconscious. The one thing that happened to me, which was very different and atypical of an abductee, is I was real time all the time with my handler. So I wasn't dreaming. I was, it's like you and I having a conversation. There's no difference except I'm live feed real time with the communication system. So that's the difference. Also, the psychotronic weapon systems where it targets certain area of the brain to create a visual that's something that needs to be looked at, because that can create some really bad schisms down the road. And that's why I say a lot of these technologies can create a false reality or a false matrix, so that some of these contactees may not be getting the real experiences they're supposed to be getting because they're trying to run a screen memory interference program. A lot of these covert intel.
Yeah, I would be surprised. The problem with the alien abduction and any memories you might recover spontaneously, they have a dreamlike quality to them. The aliens have a way of doing that, and you can tell it's probably a memory because it seems too real to be a dream, but it at the same time has a dreamlike quality to it. So it's not as if it's not just like you remember somebody, talking to somebody in your normal life, like you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And when you have people who come to you, I just wanted to ask you real quick: is it more male or more female, or a certain race of people? Is there anything in there that stands out?
It's about half and half, but maybe slightly more skewed towards women.
Okay.
Not a lot though.
Interesting. And are they white? I mean, I have to ask: what is it? Anything to do with a race of any kind?
Yeah. It's mostly white people of Germanic and Celtic background and Native Americans.
Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, I've hypothesized that those are races that have kind of a warrior background or mentality, and the aliens may be gathering people who could fight a war for them if need be.
It's really interesting, and I'm just going to throw this at you. But when I look at this and the way we're kind of cataloging the data, and I look back with World War II and all the experimentation that went on with the Black Science Department with UFOs and Nazi bells and everything else, and all the genome programming that was happening, I have to ask myself if we're not hybrids and if we weren't an experiment way, way back. And also, you can take this any way you want, but I believe that the white race is an off-world species. And I believe that's one of the reasons they're trying to basically destroy the white race right now, is because they don't want that starseed here on this world. I really, really believe this. Now, you guys can take it any way you want. I don't know what your perception is, but I'll tell you right now, there's definitely a war on the white race. And it's not...
Well, sure, I didn't believe that before, but it sure seems like that now. I mean, at this late date in the game, I think that they're trying to do some kind of an end game scenario, but it hasn't been going so well for them.
No, it's not. And I'll tell you right now, it's like they're trying to eradicate anything that has a remnant of off-world intelligence, off-world species, off-world consciousness, your spiritual benchmark, your celestial benchmark. People who are religious, it's really about spirituality and consciousness, although they go into their own religions. But divine force energy, divine energies is cosmic. So, I just see it like this, and I'm wondering, what's sparking up this hatred against the white race. And it's not the whites hating the other colors. It really isn't. This is something very sickening to me.
It seems to be acceptable now to bash white people, whereas if we say anything about somebody of another race, even if it's justified, it's racism, and that's just not right. I mean, when you hear Oprah or prominent black people saying all white people got to die. Mm-hmm. They had to go to jail, or at least be severely censored for saying something like that, considering what would happen to us if we said anything similar.
Well, what's interesting about that whole group and the mainstream media and all these little guys and the music industry and the entertainment industry is that they have a lot of money. They have handlers. They're all programmed, and most of their money is connected to the black technology to some degree. They can get in and get access to a lot of that technology, but they're still the slaves. Every one of them are slaves, and they're never going to be free.
Oh, yeah.
And those of us who are independent, I mean, we're entrepreneurs, and we are very empowered celestial star people in bodies. So there's a lot of jealousy. I'm telling you right now, and this is why they want to keep everybody stupid. They want the mass collective to be ignorant, dumbed down, switched off, so they can make themselves look bright and shiny like stars in the sky, or people in D.C. who look intelligent when they're incompetent, like the Congress, like that Pelosi, who's just completely incompetent.
And I
can't believe
I really couldn't stand her for a long time. Now I just think she's just crazy. She's not all there.
She's disgusting. The thing is,
somebody's slave.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me started with this, but my gosh, she sits there and basically I couldn't believe she could stand up for 8 hours. Really? Did she actually get to stand, or does she have a walker? Bottom line is these people don't deserve the privilege of being in those positions in the illusion of power. They've abused the privilege. They've also committed high treason, and all of them need to be called out and prosecuted to the max.
Well, yeah,
so I don't know when that's going to happen.
They're all political hacks nowadays. Pelosi's a
I agree.
Political hack.
And those of us who haven't had the Kool-Aid, we're not here and living in La La Land. We see through it. We're very analytical, but yet we're very spiritual, very enhanced. We deserve better than this as a civilization, as a species, as a race, whatever. We deserve better. And this is why I tell you, and this is why I like Elon Musk too. I'm not going to settle for this. I don't know about the rest of you out there listening. I'm not settling for this. So one way or another, this stuff's going to go.
Guy. He's really trying to advance things.
Well, that's the part I like.
He's the biggest innovator since Tesla, I'd say.
Well, I think so too, and I think it's interesting how Tesla is the car that he put out there. So, it must have been somebody that he probably had a lot of resonance with too. But I will say one thing: we don't belong here. We do come from the stars, and we're going home to the stars in one form or another. So, however people want to digest that, you digest it whatever you want to. But I will say one thing: I do see the war going down. I see the race war that spun out of control that was incited back with the Obama administration. I think it's gotten worse and worse and worse. Now everybody has to be brown, and if you're white, you're a criminal, or you're this, or you're a bigot, and that is just a bunch of crap. So, but I will say one thing: there was a lot of experimentation done prior to World War II on the white race, and I mean other races too. But I would say we're probably more than hybrids, and that is part of it. They want to exterminate anything that has a remnant of the celestial codes. It's just like Grail keepers. They want to snuff all the Grail keepers out.
I'm kind of surprised though, because the people that run these black projects are mostly white. I don't get it.
Well, I think that's why most of us are tagged who are white. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying there's something going on with an eradication program, and it seems to me like they're really targeting the white race. So enslaving the white race.
It seems like that too. I thought that was just some sort of Nazi propaganda when I was a kid, but it sure seems true now.
No, it's not. And like I said before, I don't care what people's color, sex is, whatever they do. I don't care. It's how they act in their suits. I really could care less. But the problem I'm seeing now is this division that's created. And it's a species war now. Now I'm looking at it not as a race war. It's a species war because it's about consciousness and what's inside the body and the frequency that's triggering these people. It's not about the white. They're using that as an excuse, quite honestly. So that's just my own take. But I'll tell you what, there's definitely an eradication program going on and a lot of other things. And one thing I can tell you that the world really went downhill. And I hate to say it, but when we had computers, that's one thing. But when everybody got the iPhones, that's when you pretty much could flatline just everybody here. That's when it all really went downhill.
Oh, smartphones are a security nightmare. They can track you. They can even use the devices as room bugs, and they can get anything on anybody that's got a smartphone. And I learned that the hard way when my ex-wife with her friends started bugging my cell phone. It was pretty a pretty strange experience, but. I want to have a smartphone again. I just have a regular flip phone now.
Yeah, and that's pretty smart to actually do that. Yeah, I actually do. I power mine off, but I don't like it. But I've been so calibrated to technology and stuff like that really doesn't. I don't even care because where I've been with the technology is way beyond.
The reason you can't take the battery out of a smartphone is because they want to be able to track you. Turning it off is not sufficient.
Yeah, well, they can track me with or without a phone. You know that. But
well, yeah, sure. But why make it any easier for them?
No, that's true. No, I agree with you on that one. And like I said before, everybody was whining about this. And I still think this memo is not going to go anywhere, quite honestly. I think that I was kind of hopeful and thinking that they were going to do some mass arrests. Now I'm like, no, they're not going to do anything. As usual, nothing's going to get done, and the criminals are going to keep walking, and the people that have committed high treason are going to...
It may be too late. I was worried about that from the beginning when Trump got elected. They may just have too much power. He may not be able to do anything about that.
I don't believe in that, but I understand where you're coming from. But I have to tell you, I believe they can change it, and I believe they can do this, and they can get them for high treason. And they can go after these people. And what's interesting is because I'm one of the real smoking guns with this stuff, Steve, because the technological interface I was pulled into was an exotic technology that should have never been in my home. They should have never used this on me. That's the technological warfare.
If they had a bunch of people in there that were as hardcore as me and you, yeah, they could do it then. But I'm not sure if it's possible under the current political circumstances. We'll soon find out. If
you get them on what they've done as a war crime towards beings like me with interconnecting me with artificial intelligence, synthetic telepathy programming, mind control, psychotronic harassment, assault battery directed energy weapon, abuse, and indoctrination programming, re-education programming, that to me is crossing the line like you wouldn't freaking believe. And if we can't get them on that, then you can't get them on anything. And that's what I'll say point blank, because the surveillance that they're doing, oh, somebody's listening to my phone conversation, or somebody just tagged my computer. Well, how would you like to get your brain hacked remotely? That's the biggest war crime ever. And I've been sitting here, and I'm not Casper the Friendly Ghost, and you know this, Steve, but I'll be damned if people are going to keep ignoring my case when my case was valid, and those people got away with a very bad crime. So I always use that as a benchmark, and I'll tell you point blank, yeah, they need to go after a lot of those people in Congress, because a lot of those little SOBs over there know exactly about that black technology, and they use it every day to screw people's lives over. So it's no good. It's no good.
We're both in the same boat. I mean, I think you've been hacked by the aliens too, and so have I.
Oh, I'm definitely an off-worlder to begin with.
We're never gonna prosecute them.
No, the difference is I know I'm advanced in consciousness. I already had a natural, what I call Merkaba signal, which is very, very sacred, very spiritual. It's a very unified pulse. And I know I had that before they showed up with the scalar technology and interface. So yeah, I'm very familiar with what I am versus what they wanted me to be and what they were trying to do with my energy in their filthy little world of artificial intelligence. Another thing is when they take your brainwave templates, and if they know, just like with people in Tibet or the masters who can create, I was on that same level, same frequency doing DNA activation. You take the template, you take the brainwave activity, you interface it onto an artificial intelligence program, and you deploy it and you utilize it. They're stealing data, they're stealing brain templates, they're stealing people's ideas, they're taking from people, they're giving nothing in return, and then they're trying to discredit the people, just like they do with the ancient, the scientists of old.
With the patents too, they're stealing people's ideas,
right,
and giving nothing in return, and then it hurts the economy. I don't know.
Well, not only does it hurt the economy, it's hurting our evolution because these guys are incompetent. They cannot be in control of the world. I'm sorry, but you don't give a psychopath, incompetent freak with one firing neuron control of this world. You just don't do it. And what I'm
two things to do that are over reliance on money. I'm not sure what to replace it with, but our over reliance on money and things of value is doing that. Plus the overriding human idea that it's okay for less than 1% of the population to own everything, including the other 99%. That's one idea that the aliens do not want out into the rest of the galaxy because it's incredibly destructive.
Well, I can tell you one thing. Mankind is not at the frequency and consciousness to be in the universe, in the multiverse navigating. Those of us who are expanded in consciousness know we're the ones who are outside the perimeters of this world. But the rest of them don't get it. They don't want to get it. They want to be enslaved. They don't want to learn. They don't want to grow up. They don't want to evolve. They want to judge each other. They want to point fingers at each other. You see where mankind is. What's that?
Yes, that's right. A lot of them want to be enslaved. That's what I was saying before about them being very scared when you confront them with hard data, because that might force them to change their worldview, which they don't want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, but it's got to change because we can't suffer the consequences due to their ignorance. And that's what I'm seeing in Congress right now, for example. That's what I'm seeing. I see Trump in there trying to shine bright and do the right thing. For the most part, I think he has done a pretty good job in office, but he still needs to get these guys yesterday. And that's what I said a billion times over. I said, oh, bummer, as soon as he walked out of office, should have been arrested for high treason. Why didn't he arrest him? I don't know. He has enough goods on him.
I don't know why he doesn't fire that Sessions dude and put somebody in there that will prosecute Hillary and Bill and all the other traitors that are in our government right now.
I agree, and the whole thing is, it goes back to even the old Bush administration. I mean, these guys were running a lot of very, very dirty operations behind our backs, basically. And you know what? We weren't paying attention because everybody's trying to make a living. Everybody's just trying to have a happy life, and I don't blame anybody for that. I had a great life too before they went out of their way to destroy it and erase it. So I get that. Everybody just wants to have a little piece of happiness, right? So, but here it's like it's almost impossible to even have any type of bliss or peace or inner peace because we were just getting constantly pressurized with all kinds of things. They have a little
piece of happiness, and they find their various ways to do that in spite of how bad things get. But when that becomes impossible to do in any way, shape, or form anymore, and they do want to change things, it's too late by that time.
Well, the way I see it is that, you know what, it's not like when in Rome, become a Roman, do what they do. I don't want to be these people. I don't like who they are. I don't like the fact that they don't have a celestial moral compass. There's incompetence, there's ignorance, there's violence.
There are limits. Shoot, if everybody's a serial killer, do you want to become one too?
Exactly, but that's what they want. They want everybody to be the same color, the same thing, the same collective. No. It's singular consciousness merged with source. We are not playing this game, and I'm not speaking for everybody, but I will speak for those of us I know who are very, very advanced in what I call star consciousness, higher consciousness, whatever you want to call it, enlightenment. We're not settling for this. And I think this is why the only escape route for me and beings like us, in my opinion, is to get out of here and off this world. If this world can't change, and we can't get these governments to stop and corporations to stop, and this artificial intelligence array system is out of control, which it is, because it's all right now. I called it the black umbrella years ago, but now we have all these it's like bands and bands of frequencies running around, just completely entrapping everybody in a frequency fence. So we've got to get out of here. Seriously, guys. I know this sounds strange to you guys listening, maybe not, but we really do not belong on this world anymore. And I said this before, and you can quote it, but I swear we're out of orbit. We're not in the right orbit anymore. Things have shifted dramatically. CERN's been really quiet, laying low, not sure what's going on over there. But think about it for a minute, because everything to me feels off. So I don't know what your sense is on that, but I'm telling you right now, when you hijack frequencies and you're running interference with scalar technology manufactured by mankind, you're going to alter and create a rifting in the reality of what we're supposed to be existing in.
Well, I don't know if it's all off or not. I tend to think that things are going according to a master plan, but at the same time, I do feel like something bad's about to happen, or a lot of things bad are about to happen, and in particular, like war is coming. I see the situation in North Korea, China, and that Asian area of the world as being a lot like it was before World War II. People forget that World War II did not start in Europe; it started in Asia. It started when the Japanese attacked China in 1937, and here we are in 2018, and the situation's quite similar. I mean, it started when the Japanese attacked China. The world didn't like that. The U.S. didn't like that. And because we didn't like that, we put sanctions on Japan and wouldn't sell them any more oil. And then they had to choose between basically surrendering or kowtowing to us and stopping their attack on China, or finding a new source of oil. And that involved attacking Dutch possessions over there that had oil, and so they knew the U.S. wouldn't stand for that, so they decided to attack our Pacific Fleet to stop us from doing anything about it.
Yeah, well, it's highly possible, although North Korea is trying to behave themselves right now. But I think that, you know what, these are desperate times for these cabals, and that they realize that they're drowning. They're literally drowning in a whirlpool, and they're going to have to do something to try to take control. And it could be something.
Like I said, they're encountering resistance. Things didn't go their way. I mean, they wanted their New World Order to be put in place by the year 2000, and of course that didn't happen. But people are wise to all their plans to chip people and do one world currency and one world religion and all that. And when they try to make any moves toward any of those things, now there's a massive public outcry, and I'm sure they're most displeased about that. But there's there's limits to what they can do as well. I mean, money only goes so far, brains only takes you so far. I mean, there's political reality to deal with here, and it's going against them in a lot of ways.
Right. No, I agree with you on that one. I think they were very reckless and very foolish. And like I said, it's an abuse of power and the illusion of power. It really is. Anybody who's had access to the type of things these people have access to, and the money and the type of technology, and they've abused it out the wazoo. It's just unfortunate that they even went that path. But they did. And they hoarded so much data, so much technology, and they still do. You know how many people were being persecuted? And I was just looking at some things. A lot of people in the old days, some people were crazy, yeah. But a lot of people who weren't really mentally ill were put away in institutions and psychiatric units, and still today, that are being targeted with technology that literally puts voices in their heads, but it's not a voice. It's a mock radio communication system. It's a radio signal. It's also artificial telepathy. There's a patent on this crap. The military contracts with it. I interface with it live feed real time with my handler. I know exactly how it works. And I'll tell you point blank, and yet people are getting put away, prosecuted, or whatever, drugged, medicated, and eventually die and expire as madmen when in fact they're not. You want to tell me what's wrong with this picture? And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but this is insanity.
In this day and age, they ought to make sure that the person's not a targeted individual or an alien abductee, for including that they're crazy if they complain of voices. It's quite possible for sane people in both groups to hear voices or sounds or whatever without being crazy.
Oh yeah, well even then, when you're naturally psychic too, and if you're natural clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, your antenna, your psychic antenna is really switched on and multiversally switched on, which means you don't hear the regular stuff around here. What they do is just hijack that circuitry and then interface a mock radio communication signal or a radio wave. It's real simple to do in a sense. Hijacking is basically overlaying the brainwave activity with heterodyning systems and just interfacing live feed real time. But they do this a lot. And you probably know as well as I do, even with the people who are contactees, they're getting looked at for various reasons, probably because they are, and they do have an access to off-world species. They get pulled in with the Black Science Department, and then, if you go out, if they have something that's really credible, people try to snuff their information out, or or laugh at them or scoff at them. I think you went through these cycles initially way back with Dr. Lear, if I'm not mistaken. I think, they wouldn't even look at some of his work initially, right?
Well, they won't look at it now. I mean, we tried to publish a paper in I think it was like 2011, 2012, and at first they said that it was a journal of scientific exploration. They first said they were going to publish it. Then when I got it finished and turned it in, they said it had to do with aliens and UFOs, even though we did not even claim the object was alien or had anything to do with UFOs. They were just saying that, and so I think somebody got to them and said, "Well, you're not publishing this." That's the way it seemed to us, anyway.
Certainly sounds that way. Well, the only time they do anything is when they can make money off of it. And they'll spin it. They'll take your story, they'll take the data, they'll copy it, and then they'll run a movie about it, and then everybody will go see the movie and make billions of dollars. The people make a lot of money that way. It's so crazy. It really is. But I think all that stuff's coming to an end, and the whole disclosure thing. I've said it a billion times over. The real disclosure is basically pulling the lid off of the black science department and showing the world what they've been doing with covert warfare, the psychological, the cyber surveillance, cybersecurity, everything they've been doing, everything they did to me, interconnecting me with technology, artificial intelligence. Every bit of that technology needs to be put out there so the world can see it. I'm serious. You know what? Because if they're going to play these games, then, well, I don't play the game, and I don't think most people should be manipulated when they don't know what's really happening here.
Well, they need to declassify all the energy technology that UFOs use too. I mean, there have been inventors that have been able to tap the zero-point energy since the 1930s, and the government won't let us have it. That guy Stanley Meyer that ran a car off water. People scoffed at that, but it's not really that hard to believe when you consider that it was running really off zero-point energy, not off water. He developed a device that used the zero-point energy to split water into hydrogen and oxygen, and then the car burned that.
Right.
That was a pretty simple device that would have eliminated automobile pollution, but they wouldn't allow it out. I mean, it's all a lie that we're running out of oil too. It's not a fossil fuel. It's pretty much everywhere. You drill deep enough, you're going to hit it. And every place there's a fault in the earth, it comes up. It's synthesized right around the crust-mantle boundary everywhere on Earth. That's what the crustal plates float on.
It's all energy anyway. It's all a construct of energy the way I see it. And the bottom line is, the free energy's always been here. We've always had access to it. We're free energy. Our bodies are constructed with free energy and consciousness. We can actually heal our bodies. And now science is trying to say that, you can heal your body. You can affect consciousness. You can affect this through your thoughts. No kidding. We knew this in the mystery schools. Tell us something we don't know. We were teaching this, and then we were butchered for it.
They're awfully arrogant to assume that things that people have believed for thousands of years are all erroneous. I mean,
but they'll take it. See, they'll make a mockery of it. Yeah, go ahead.
Somebody along there somewhere must have seen something that convinced them it was real.
Oh, absolutely. And even if you look way back, I mean, even on the timelines before mankind really showed up on the map, we always had visitors here. We always had different species here. It wasn't always mankind. So we've always had different life forms here. We're multidimensional. This is a multidimensional world, and the illusion of it's a frequency band. We have multi layers of frequency that equates to a lot of different dimensional space. And what's really interesting is the 0 point, and I've touched on it a billion times over, but the 0 point is your soul, your spirit is a 0 point. So what are they going to do? If they say you can't have 0 point energy, well, you can't have a soul, you can't have spirit, because that's what it's composed of. I hate to tell everybody, but that's what it is.
I've given this a lot of thought, and without the 0 point energy, there would be no forces of nature at all. All of reality, all of the physical forces of nature come from the 0 point energy, directly or indirectly.
Very much so. Well, that's another thing. It's like, and also the universal life force energy, for example. Without prana, without chi, without life force, what is everything? Trees won't grow. I mean, really, when you look at everything, it's alive. It's a state of consciousness and energy, and they're trying to screw up that fabric. That's
an aspect of the 0 point energy too. I think that life requires structures in the quantum vacuum to make it possible. I don't know the details yet, but it's something like that. And
I totally agree.
So the chi or prana is an aspect of 0 point energy.
That's where light body comes from. That's why when I was teaching the DNA activation, it was always about light body levels of consciousness, which is really about you basically being able to change your vibrational frequency and changing your molecular structure, changing your body. That enables you to phase shift. That enables you to teleport. In other words, we don't need old-fashioned space capsules and spaceships. We can phase into other dimensional spaces with our bodies and not be sick and not be dead. We can actually go to other places and get calibrated through consciousness to be on other worlds. That's not science fiction. That's science fact. yet people don't talk about it. Well, they will be soon enough. And science will say, oh, we can prove this now. Well, I knew about it, and I'm sure half the people who do mystery school teachings knew about it, because that's what the body of light is about. So once again, we always have these components, but I really think the war has been on what we're capable of doing as multidimensional beings and our levels of consciousness, so that we can see through the BS, and we're not going to put up with it. And I think this is where these corporations and all these governments and all these rules, it's got to stop. I mean, this stuff does not fly with me, and I don't know. I guess it's going to fly with the kids growing up. I don't know, but
well,
if
that's the younger generation now. Speaking of kids, is the most boring bunch of younger people I've ever seen or heard of. I mean, all these rules must be getting to them. One big problem with the whole human race right now is that all these rules and regulations and the zero tolerance attitude is designed to basically kill the human spirit, and it's doing a pretty good job.
I agree. And then everything is about selfies. All they care about is looking at themselves like little parrots in a mirror, like they've never seen themselves before. I compared it to like chimpanzees. They don't know what's going on. They just want to stare at themselves and take little pictures all day, or their food. They don't even know how to communicate. And I'm thinking to myself, this is not okay. And this is why I really, deep down, I love technology. I'm a technological nerd, believe me, even after where I've been with technology. But I have to tell you, I would love to see things grow quiet for a while, because I'm sick of the abuse of things. I'm so tired of everybody making money and everybody becoming incompetent with these technologies that are literally destroying our entire world.
There comes a time when you have to turn it off and deal with the real world. At least, balanced people do that. Things have become unbalanced.
It's way unbalanced. Like I said, I observe that Facebook, and I swear it's like when I observe it, it's like I'm observing it through like a surveillance screen. And I'm telling you, the people there are just like weird. Not everybody. I mean, I attract the normal ones for the most part, knock wood. But I have to say, it's like crazy watching some of the crap they put out there. And that's who they are. So anyways, we're going to have a break here. Everybody listen to Ravenstars Witching Hour. I'm Solaris Blue Ribbon. My excellent guest tonight is Steve Colbern. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.